in my last attempt, that is 2022 attempt, I was also under the guidance of Civilsdaily itself. I had studied the book by D.K. Balaji sir, his book on ethics, which is already available on Amazon and other websites. I ordered it from there only. And from that book, ma'am, I just learned the basic definitions of the values, the basic meanings, as well as of all the values as of aptitude, as well as foundational values in civil services.
If you go through the analysis of last few years of paper, you'll see code-based questions. They are targeting a lot of thinkers which are very much relevant to UPSC. Hello guys, welcome to ethics webinar on analysis of 2023 paper as well as the preparation strategy for the next year paper. So I've entered everyone from the participation room. Let me know if you guys can hear my voice properly, and then just type in the chat box, and then we can start with the webinar. Okay, cool. I'm getting some messages here. Okay, Soumya, Aishwarya. All right. Okay, so I can see a lot of messages that they can hear my voice. Some people, I think their microphones are yet to connect. And if guys, if you're not facing an issue with respect to connection, just rejoin the meeting again. Okay. So let's start with today's webinar. First of all, welcome everyone so much for taking out time. And in this webinar, again, we'll be talking about how to strategize your ethics preparation in the next 3 months. What are the important do's and what are the important not to do's? And other than me telling you what are the important do's and don'ts, we've got a topper with us who will also tell from his experience of the paper what worked for him in ethics and what did not. So today we have Vaibhav Priya with us, who secured All India rank 104 in 2022 attempt. And also, especially in ethics, he also secured 119 marks. So that is a very good marks that he got. So he'll be here talking about his strategy, what worked from him, what did he think about the last year's paper, and how he would advise the future students to take care of this particular subject. So Vaibhav, thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule, and it's our pleasure to have you here in this particular webinar.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me here.
Right. So, Vaibhav, how has your journey, like just a normal question, just to bring an icebreaker, how has your journey for this particular examination been? And now I think you've been part of the training and everything. So how whole of this journey has panned out for you?
Yes, ma'am, the journey has been very exciting. Like, I have been giving mains continuously from 2020 to 2021, 2022. And this, to be very precise, ethics has been the best paper for me because I continuously secured very good marks, like 102 in first attempt, then 114, and then 119 in third attempt. So, ma'am, for me, I always thought that I understood what was required in ethics and how to attempt it. Although I heard that you had to write very long answers, you had to write too much of examples, too much of quotations. But through my own experiences, through my 3 attempts, I understood that yes, what is required is very little, and you need to just reflect upon them in a better manner so that it becomes very visible what you are trying to tell. Because in ethics, the main thing is that how we convey our own feelings, how we convey our values, which we have and which is required. That is has to be shown in the aptitude. That is the answer part to the examiner as well. And since
Right. Yes.
and obviously, in my last attempt, that is 2022 attempt, I was also under the guidance of Civilsdaily itself, where I talked to you as well as Sajal sir, in which he also asked me how to make my answers better in ethics as such, because he had also you and Sajal sir had also seen that I was getting good marks in ethics, and so it was also to just increase it more, although it had a good marks in the initials also. So I thought that the guidance is also very crucial, because in ethics it's the best paper where we can get maximum output through minimum efforts, because here we don't have to just cram upon the things. Here just the little application of values as well as attitude can give us a very high output.
I think, guys, make a note. I think Vaibhav actually gave you a very good advice, because I've seen a lot of toppers, they talk about this quotation, this data, that much. And ultimately, when you're preparing for this paper, along with other papers, it's very difficult. It is becoming very difficult to, get that all structure into one place. But I think, yeah, Vaibhav has done really well throughout his papers. Like I said, he was part of our program, and I think he was a very sincere student. He made sure that he was writing tests, he made sure he got the right guidance, and he made sure that changes were there in his paper. So yes, that being said, uh, let me give a brief idea or analysis about last year's paper, and then Weber, we'll shift to you about
Yes,
what did you understand about this paper, like the recent 2023 paper, and what was your analysis for this particular paper. Okay, so guys, I'll be sharing my screen and I'll give you a short review of what type of questions were there in this particular paper. Okay, so starting with the idea that we'll be first talking about section A and the analysis of section A. So basically, I have divided the section A questions into three parts. One, I considered them as easy, which were directly from your static portions. So they were not very difficult. Like we had questions like morality, moral integrity, professional efficiency. We had a direct question on poverty, social capital, international aid. So these were very, very direct questions. And most of this content was actually covered in your static portion. And I think this is your responsibility, that you are very thorough with the definitions, the concepts. Like you cannot mess around with, say, basic definition of conscious, law, rules and regulations. Now that is, if you find these type of questions difficult, then there is a lack in your basic preparation. So I would put these type of, a lot of number of questions in this category. Next category that I've defined is medium. Not that these questions were very difficult, but again, these kind of terms like coercion or undue influence, suddenly under exam pressure, when you look at these terms, now the definitions and the concepts that you need to arrange according to them, that becomes difficult. These questions, like if you and I sit right now and we have half an hour, we can easily draft answer for them. But considering, the exam perspective, when you see new terms that are thrown to you, it can sometimes, put you aside. So I think, again, if you see, I've not put them in tough category, I've only put them in a medium category, and only two types of questions are there. Next were your code-based questions. Now, the interesting part is, see, guys, if you go through the analysis of last few years of paper, you'll see code-based questions. They are targeting a lot of thinkers which are very much relevant to UPSC. For example, Gandhiji from 2013 till now must have been asked like 4, 5, 6 times. Okay, so and same is the case like Swami Vivekananda. I think it was asked last year also, and a year before that also. So these kind of thinkers are very much repetitive. And again, if you can go through a basic, their quotations or certain set of their ideas, it will become very easy for you write these answers. Other than that, I think there was this one question where this statement was there, like corruption is the manifestation of core values. And then we had a question attached to it. Again, this was not a very difficult question, but usually one mistake that student misses, they do not explain the quote. They directly shift to the measures that are required to gain the core values. So code-based questions, I think these are the common mistakes that people make. And usually I place code-based question in medium category, because if you don't have a proper strategy with respect to code-based question, you are going to mess it up. If on the 2 pages, you're just writing about the meaning of the quote and, writing the reductant stuff again and again, then you'll not be getting marks, even if the quote is easier. So you need to have a pre-made strategy with respect to your code-based questions, which is very, very necessary. And only one question in section A, I've actually put in the tough category, which was the Guru Nanak category. Guru Nanak question, his major teachings. Even though you could answer this question from your GS. So overall, if you look here, majority of your questions would be placed in the easy category. Talk about periphery values also, core values also. Then you had to connect it with good governance and effective service delivery. right? So within 10 marker, you had to do a lot. Similarly, 2021, you have 10 essential values which you had to talk about. Now, thinking about these and examples of this, all that in 7 minutes is very difficult, right? So again, don't gauge the preparation level just upon the 2023 paper. Have this analysis in your mind, because again, if UPSC is giving you a difficult level a year before, it might repeat in the next year also. Same scenario with respect to 20 the later on questions, though the themes are repeating. If you notice, like the probity is given here, EI is here, attitude is here. The same questions can be seen in 21 also, in 22 also. Like we've got good governance, e-governance in 2022. This time also we had a question on probity and good governance, right? So the themes might connect, and obviously by doing your PYQ, you can prepare such examples and such content. But again, don't take the paper very lightly. You'll have to do your work, even though that work would be minimum out of GS 1, 2, 3 and other optional, but yet that will reward you so much better, like what Vaibhav had said. One more thing that we'll be looking at is section B. Now, major analysis of section B, according to me, this time was that we had a lot of interesting case studies this time. Like we had a lot of personal based issues that were there and that were discussed in this year's paper. They were not very lengthy. Like last year, we had very lengthy case studies. You had to spend a lot of time reading. That was not the case. And even sometimes, last year, understanding the whole case study would take 2 reads of the case study. That was not the case this year. You could just read it once and you could understand the whole thing. Okay, so that was a very easy thing for the people. And we had personal, like we had this kid who was bullied at the school, that kind of case study. Then Seema, she had to face like the second last case study, how she would take care of her children and then job, managing that work life balance. Now this kind of case study, if you go through the previous year, we've been given this question one more time. I think this is repetition. We've had another case study earlier also. Okay, and uske baad we had this first father is ill and there's this dormant account. I think the level was much more easier, so you could crack it easily. And yes, one more same idea. Please go through the case studies which have been given in the earlier sections also, because I think they help you prepare better. This time we had number of questions also less. Last year we had 4 to 5 questions that were attached to each case study. That was not the case this year, but you have to be prepared for the toughest paper that UPSC can throw out to you, right? So this is my major analysis that I had with respect to your this year's paper. So yeah, Vaibhav, what do you think? Did you go through the paper? What was your understanding of this paper?
Yes, ma'am. And this year, the paper, the size of the questions was less because in last year, the questions of 10 markers were extremely long. So the most of the time went in the reading the questions itself. And as you said, it had more of the sub parts. Because in ethics, we cannot just explain one part and leave the other. So relatively this time, the topics were directly straightforward. We just had to define it, then link it to the subject part, and then elucidate it with the examples to make it profound. And similarly, ma'am, case study also, as you said, it was also a little shorter. And this time they were interesting because we really had to put ourselves in the shoes of the administrator and then evaluate it rather than just giving a plain answer of how we attempt the case studies and all. So, ma'am, I thought this time the in 10 markers, although the creative aspect was little less, but in that case studies, it was a huge where we could really deliver a more intuitive examples as well as intuitive solutions. Because as I think the evaluator, who is checking the paper, also thinks that how the guy is really thinking when he's being faced with this problem, so that we come up with our own intuitive solutions, such as by using media, by using new digital technologies. So and how we are just taking the examples as well as the lead from it.
Right. So, Weber, we'll divide your advice to students into 2 areas.
Yes, ma'am.
One would be the students who are just, preparing for first attempt or the second attempt. So basically they're newcomer,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
they have next 5 months how they can strategize, because they like I'm reading some comments in the chat box. I think some people are writing which book to read, which how to prepare notes. So these type of questions are usually from the students who just starting
Yes,
right
ma'am.
now. Okay, first and second attempters. Now there are some people here also who would be attempting the third and fourth. So that is like a more of a refining thing. So what they can do in the next 3-4 months, that advice. So we'll start with the beginners. Like, how would you advise beginners to prepare with respect to this subject?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, although in my first attempt I got very good marks, like 102, but still, in my second attempt, I had studied the book by D.K. Balaji sir, his book on ethics, which is already available on Amazon and other websites. I ordered it from there only. And from that book, ma'am, I just learned the basic definitions of the values, the basic meanings, as well as of all the values as of aptitude as well as foundational values in civil services. Like there are multiple of them which they are generally being asked in the exam to define them and illustrate them with examples. So I had gone through it just to have that basic meaning, and I just wrote it down, and I always used to revise them because the meanings never change. Only the interpretations can vary across space and time according to the context in which they are being asked. And similarly, ma'am, also I had two examples each of different values which are given in the syllabus itself, like aptitude values as well as foundational values in civil services, such as honesty, empathy, all these values are there. So I had also prepared examples, and I used to keep updating them with the real life situations as well as the current affairs based. For example, there was India has shown compassionate grounds when Taliban had hit mosque as Gurudwara in Pakistan as well as Afghanistan. So I used to keep updating them with the current examples also. And ma'am, from case studies, I always used to attempt just previous year's papers of ethics only. I never used to go and run out for the ethics case study from different coaching institutes. Rather, I always used to solve ethics case studies from previous year UPSC answers, questions only. And also, ma'am, many people miss, like they are always in doubt how to attempt, how to give solutions to ethics case studies. But if we can see that earlier the UPSC used to give itself own solutions, like 2-3 solutions, and then used to ask us which solution you would pick. So I always used to look at those solutions also, like what UPSC examiners are thinking while they are setting the context. So ma'am, I also used to follow them very religiously so as to make my own mindset that how I'm going to attempt this. And ma'am, for me, the best example and the best practice was to go through previous case studies, particularly in case of case studies which we used to get, and also the one line the question answers, that questions which we used to get there in the previous sections of the UPSC question.
Right. Like the basic notes you did you make, like beyond the basic definitions and all those, did you make any other notes
Yes, ma'am.
for
But like,
ethics?
yes, ma'am. Like beyond the basic definitions, there are different subject subsections in the ethics syllabus itself. Like there's ethics, aptitude, then there is attitude, then there is EI, and then there are thinkers. Also in thinkers, I had made different thinkers who are generally being asked, such as Aristotle, Bentham, and this Raoul's social justice. All these points, I had also written this Guru Nanak teachings because I found them very relevant. Like Guru Nanak thinkings, where the Gandhi's 7 principles are there, and his values just sarvodaya, trusteeship. I had also written them all these down because they are always, they can be used across space and time. They never get outdated. So I already had these thinkers in my notes also. And then there was notes on probity itself. All these, there are in ethics syllabus, there are broad points such as which I mentioned earlier. So the best thing is for a beginner is to make very short notes, but very diligently, not to rush just to complete the syllabus, but to just go through pinpoint each and every key point in the syllabus so that we don't miss. As you already mentioned, most of the questions in the ethics paper are being asked and being repeated over the years. So if we have a notes which can cater to all the points of the syllabus, it will be relevant through all our attempts, whether it is first attempt or whether it is a third attempt. Only examples can change, not the key essence which is being carried in our notes.
Right. So example bank, you had a separate note which you
Yes, ma'am.
kept on updating year
Yes,
by year.
yes. And
Okay.
also, I did not use to run through for the examples. Like if TN session is there for me, I will use it. It's not that everybody is using, so I won't use it. Definitely, I won't repeat the examples, but the examples which are standard, there is no problem in using them because I have been using them across it. Because people always go for fancy examples, like yes, they have studied here, but I think that when you use the common examples and very well-known examples, it is a safer side rather than to go for an extraordinary example, because people do try to relate from army side or some doctor side or from police side, but it might not be known to everyone who is checking the paper as odd and level. So it is best to use the most apt example that can be known by everyone across length and breadth of the country itself.
Right. And what about using quotations and these kind of things in the paper, like data and all those things?
Generally, ma'am, quotations I did not used to use in the data. In case studies, sometimes I used to start with the data. For example, if question is asked from employment, if it is catering to the core subject is unemployment, or core subject is poverty, then I sometimes used to write the data in the initial or in the conclusion part, not in between, because in between I only used to focus on solutions and just to make it more lively and more intuitive, so that it is being catered to the main question itself.
Right. And now moving on to the second category of the students, like who are who've done with the syllabus, who've
Yes,
gone
ma'am.
through the reading, but they're not scoring well. Like they're somewhere stuck on the 90s margin. So,
Yes,
what would you recommend to those students?
ma'am, I would definitely recommend them to just go through the past year papers of UPSC, not coaching institute but UPSC itself, and then trying to just ask and answer what is being asked to them. For example, if there are different subparts in the same question, then we have to link the main value, because the value will be one and it will be linked to different aspects. And here, ma'am, sometimes we do tend to define the value, but we don't link it to the subparts. Then that's the part, that how we are just defining the value and then linking to the subparts and then concluding it with relevant examples, so that it becomes very holistic answer. This has to be done in the 10 marker questions. And similarly, when we move to the case studies part, we have to be very thorough. For example, I never used to write stakeholder diagram. I've never written it in my any of the attempts, because it used to cover a lot of my space. Because UPSC is very intuitive. It always keeps changing the size of and the size number of pages every year. For example, last year the pages were huge, 69 pages were there in our attempt, 2022 attempt, and in 2020 attempt the size of was very less, just 3 pages for case study. So it keeps changing, and that's why I always like to just hit the bullseye. I have seen the question, I will directly approach it with the what is being asked. Like if the question is there, I will directly address to it, rather than just making it very decorative and all, like by writing stuff and all. This was my main attempt, and this does not come with just a one day thinking. You have to practice it across time, because sometimes we people also think that how we will definitely write a lot in case studies, but it doesn't matter what you are writing. The size doesn't matter at all, because I in my 2020 attempt I barely wrote 2.5 pages, but still I got very good marks in case studies, because I was a first time. I also did not have that too much of data, too much of knowledge, and I also was running short of time. So I always think that if you directly hit the bullseye, they are going to give the marks irrespective of the length. And people often go for length in case studies rather than covering all the subparts which is being asked. And this is the reason why sometimes many of the first timers they do it over the park, whereas sometimes all second or third attempters also don't get it so right, because they think they have too much of data, but they are not able to reciprocate it on that. So, ma'am, I think this only that by practicing past year papers, we can do very well on this by just controlling what to write and showing what to write.
Right. So, how much of answer writing did you do for this particular paper?
Ma'am, I have attempted every past year paper from 2013 till 2021. I had attempted every paper, not in full, even not in full that 10 markers, but case studies I wrote it very diligently, and every case study I have written for my own
Okay,
practice.
right. And you've revised them also multiple
Yes,
times?
ma'am. During the exams, I used to revise it. And since, ma'am, because I had written it myself, it had given me immense confidence, because I was able to reciprocate it in my test series, so that I was thinking that yes, I'm going on a right line. And also, ma'am, once you have written it, it stays in your mind, because you get an idea that, if I write these things, I won't run short of time. I won't run short of page. So that was my basic idea to how to, because most of the times we think are in a mind, but when we try to just put it on the paper, the size of the answer becomes long, the size of sentences gets so long. So I was able to reduce it a lot in my second attempt, that is 2021 attempt.
Right.
So I was very well equipped with that time.
Right. And other than that, how many mocks did you give for these papers?
Yes, ma'am. In mocks, ma'am, I just gave two full length test series and two subject by test series. So that
Right.
subject by test series could fill all my gaps, which were there in the
Mhm.
syllabus part. And this full
Mhm.
length test was there for my execution part. So that I was able
Right.
to see whether I'm able to execute or not. Because many of the times, ma'am, people just make the note very best of the notes. They
Mhm.
do best of the revisions, but they never
Right.
practice it. And until unless
True.
we practice it and we see how we are approaching towards it and how we are actually seeing the result, it is of no use. Because I always used to give the marks and also used to find Civilsdaily paper to be very tough at that time because I was not able to complete it. But it doesn't matter. I have to complete it anyhow. Maybe next
Mhm.
time I will try to complete it. But I always used to do it because, and I have seen many of my who were studying used to study with me. They always thought that yeah, ye to hum likh lenge. We will see it later
Mhm.
on. But believe me, ethics is the only paper where every people runs short of time. They don't have a breath to
True.
catch it in the exam hall.
True, true, true.
Yes,
In fact, I had like a lot of Smash Main students also, like 2022 attempts. They had messaged me, ma'am, we could not complete the paper
yes,
despite, writing so many papers. So, yes, ethics is something I think where you need a lot of practice. Don't take the practice element very lightly in this
yes,
paper.
ma'am.
Yeah. So, right, Vaibhav. So, other than that, like, there's certain comments here with respect to note making, but I think you've answered them already. Okay. Book. I think you said Balaji, and I think
Yes,
that
ma'am.
is.
DK Balaji book. And if people are already going through some coaching issues or they are also preparing somewhere, even from YouTube or any online sites, they just have to go through the basic syllabus, make notes out of all those key points, and they always have to see that whether there's any portion is missing or not. For example, you mentioned probity. Probity in governance is a very broad topic which is already mentioned in the syllabus. And under this, there is utilization of fund and all these things are there. So we have to just make notes of for everything, like how probity is defined, what is the philosophical basis for that, how utilization of fund is required, like how we ensure that like, by transparency, accountability, and all these measures. So just we have to make very holistic note once and all. We have to make a very holistic note, and then we have to move towards the revision side. We just don't have to rush through the syllabus just to think that we have completed it. But it has to be holistic for the first time so that we don't have to recompile it every now and then.
Okay, so cool, Vaibhav. So the basic, if I give you like a student and you have to tell me a breakdown in the next 5 months, like wrap up this syllabus this time and say maybe do these many questions in this time.
Yes, ma'am.
What would your ekdam precise advice to the students would be?
Yes, ma'am. Like first or at least 1 or 1.5 months, we can just give it to like noting up all the points, covering the syllabus, covering all the points of this mention that is in the syllabus, and then ma'am, we have to move towards revision. That is for half a month itself, or more than or 2.5 month, 1.5 to 2.5 months, and then after that we do have to complete it by writing the questions towards, by joining a test series or just by practicing UPSC previous year's papers at home itself, and then just getting it evaluated from our own fellow mates who are preparing or some seniors who have already given the paper once or twice.
Right. So maybe I think this is a good period to wrap up your ethics preparation by
Yes,
December.
ma'am. Absolutely, ma'am. That this is the best period. Even I used to do it. I used to extend it till February. Like
Mhm.
from this time, like till December, I used to complete all my syllabus, and then January used to give us just writing part. Best part, we
Right.
have to sit in the room.
Mhm.
We don't have to go out. We just used to just enjoy. I used to enjoy writing it, enjoy this writing part because it's the least thing we have to do, and we are just best prepared to do it that time.
Okay, fine. So, guys, you have been given a timeline here. You've got 5 months. I think the best time period to revise is within the next 1.5 months. Wrap up your notes, wrap up your content, and then start with your PYQs and then move to your mocks. Because again, from February, you get that kind of time pressure where you are not able to manage this subject. You tend to shift towards the core subject. So yes, you will not be able to do ethics after the prelims. That is like a complete failed strategy if you're planning to
Yes,
do
ma'am.
that. Okay, so wrap up your content here. And before we open the floor for questions to the students, that they can directly ask Vaibhav questions, we've just recently launched our Smash Ethics Program 2024, and the batch is starting from 10th October, and the first test will be on 15th October. There are 8 tests that will be there, and after each test, I'll have one-on-one mentorship call with you students. So if any one of you interested, I'm putting a link here. You can register on this link, and then you will get your call from the mentor regarding the program and explaining you all the details. So anybody who's interested in Smash Ethics program, you can just go and register on this particular link. I've pasted the link in the chat box. Now I'm opening the floor for open questions, right? Anybody who has questions can raise their hand. I will unmute them and they can ask Vaibhav directly their questions. And once we're done with the question and answer round, then we'll wrap up the session, because Vaibhav have to leave the session in 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, quickly raise your hands and you can directly connect with him and ask your questions here. Okay, so we've got Vijay Lakshmi here. You can unmute yourself, Vijay Lakshmi, and ask Vaibhav your question.
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Hi, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Sir, while writing case studies, what is the approach, sir?
While writing the case studies, you just have to read the whole case studies in 3-4 minutes, and then you have to move on to the basic subject, like what is being asked. Like you get a broad idea, like what is the main thing here. For example, you have to look for the solutions that can be in different fields, such as economic problems are there. Sometimes there was migration in my time, 2020 attempt, and sometimes it can be different, such as there was lady problem is there during the landslides in 2023. But the basic part is sometimes like in 2022, the ethics question itself had multiple parts to it. It was already asked by the examiner itself. So I had a very clear directions like how we have to go to the answers by just answering the subparts. But sometimes in case studies, it can be very vague also, like what will be your approach towards the solution. Then you always have to move in points. For example, what will be your most immediate step? Like how you will be providing the relief to the person concerned immediately. Second was the short-term response, and then there was long-term response. And long-term response was usually caters to the policy initiatives as well as measures which cannot done right now, but in the longer term, but that will involve all the stakeholders together. So you always have to move towards the question in the manner in which it is being asked, and if it is not being asked, you have to have a skeleton for yourself. That if the question comes like this, I will be moving towards it by following this strategy, such as I told you, like immediate term, short term, long term prospect is there. So, and this comes through practice itself. Like if you see previous year papers, you will get a knack of it by continuous practicing it.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, ask your question.
Sir, actually, I have given mains this year, and right now, after giving mains, this ethics paper was really. When writing the paper, the quote answers or the this case study, all these things were very. I felt very difficult. All these things. So right now, sir, I am really very much confused what to do for these next 2.5 months, because in December the results will come. Until that time,
Yes.
I have 1.5 months, and
Mhm.
very honestly, I am saying this, sir, based on my performance, I am not very much sure that I will be clearing the mains and going for the interview. At the same time, I have some doubts that I may clear the mains by some fortunate luck. So what shall I do, sir, in this time which I have right now?
Okay. See, the same thing happened with me in 2020 attempt. I also thought that I would perform very poorly in ethics. Although I got 102 marks, but that's another story because the results come out very late. After giving my 2020 attempt, I had realized like the manner and the type of attempt I'm giving is not very sincere, because I used to write very long answers, even in 10 markers as well as in case studies. So I tried to recalibrate my approach, and this I did by practicing previous year papers. Believe me, people will always think that they are in some doubt, they are not able to understand how to attempt. But I just went through UPSC previous year's papers starting from 2019, 2018, 2017, just in the reverse manner. and by just writing the solutions to it and getting it evaluated from the mates who are studying with and who are preparing with you. And definitely you will not get a golden answer in your very first attempt, like as soon as you attempt 2019 paper. But believe me, as soon as you reach 2016 or 2015 paper, you will get a knack of it at how to attempt it. Most of the times people don't follow the case, follow the answers which they have written in the test series itself. I don't know how many tests did you practice, but if you would have been practicing the test on a regular basis, this problem would not have been there. Otherwise, if you would have been a regular test giver, you would have known that what has happened wrong for you. For example, whether you increase the length of the answers, whether you were short on content, or whether you just could not understand the question itself. Because see, in quotation-based questions, it doesn't matter who has given the quote. The main essence is that whether you're understanding what the values or what the aptitude or attitude values are being checked in that question, and you just have to define it through the basic uh, uh, definitions which we have prepared for ourselves, and then just putting a relevant example that can suit the context. So I would suggest you that you should just, if you are running short of this material, then you should just go through the solved, because many of the coaching institutes will give a detailed solution regarding this 2023 attempt itself. You just go through the answers given by them, and then you just try to solve the previous year papers in this 2 or 2.5 months time which you have, because this is the golden time. This is a time which you can use to just recalibrate your strategy, recalibrate your notes, and then just move ahead towards your prelims preparation. So that would be the best approach for you.
Okay, great, Abhishek. You had one more question. After that, we'll shift to you, Soumya. Abhishek, what was your another question?
The problem with me is right now is that I have not practiced many tests. I have not evaluated myself,
Right,
and I
right,
just went and because my entire preparation was not very much structured,
right.
and very new to this preparation, like I was not able to handle the kind of pressure that I felt
Hmm.
in between the duration between the prelims and mains. So
Right.
like right now I tried to contact to your team multiple times, but they're
Okay,
having no response actually.
no issue, Abhishek. I am dropping my
Yes, ma'am.
official email ID in the chat box. Any one of you who has any doubts with respect to ethics, just drop me an email and I'll connect with you then and there. Okay, you'll get a reply from me. Okay, so I'm dropping my email ID. I hope everybody can see it. Just drop me a question. Whatever doubts you have with respect to ethics, you can just drop me there. Okay. Uh, Next, we've got Soumya. Soumya, go ahead. What is your question for Vaibhav?
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. So my question was related to the case study part where you mentioned that you did not care to, write the make the diagram or mention the stakeholders that are involved in that particular case studies. So I did not get that part. And like if we do not mention the stakeholders and then may not mention the solutions we are providing to each and every stakeholder in that flow of the answer, like I got confused there. Like how did
Uh,
you not? How did you
uh,
manage to do handle that?
okay. That stakeholders part which I was telling was the one which every people make in the introduction itself, like that arrow diagram. Like there are, it can be a square,
Yes,
octagonal,
yes,
or hexagonal.
yes, yes,
That
yes.
that part I'm telling that I never used to make it, because it used to take up my space and it did not use to add any value. But rather, when I was writing the answer, when I was giving solutions, then I used to give all these stakeholders from various perspectives. For example, as a solution provider, first I will give it from administrator side. Second, I will move from institutional side, and third, I will also try to include the society itself, that how society can contribute in it. Then, thus, I used to mention these stakeholders while writing the answers. Not, I was just used to avoid that skeleton diagram of stakeholders, like where you put arrow, like people. So people is there, organization is there, then me as DM or me as IPS officer. I did not used to make that diagram. I was referring to that only.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So you avoided even mentioning that stakeholder, like even bullet wise or number wise. You just provided the solutions while writing the answer and mentioning the stakeholder.
Mentioning the stakeholders where they were required in that relevant solutions itself.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank
Because see, you won't realize the UPSC can reduce the number of pages any day. That's why you have to just be very intuitive and be very just innovative in answer writing.
you. Sir, one more question, sir.
Haha.
Sir, can you tell me like your approach for quotation based questions.
See, the same thing I was telling. It doesn't matter who has given the code. You just have to find what are the value being asked in the question. For example, although the quotation will be very long, but you will get to know the essence, like which value is being tested here, whether it is aptitude value, attitude value, or any foundational value of civil service. Then you just have to use that the meaning as well as definition which you have already prepared in your notes, and then just put it there, define it, and then just connect it to the subject part of the desired quotation. And then you have to move to the relevant example that can be just best attributed to that code. Because many of the times we get afraid that, oh, we have not studied that code, but it doesn't matter. Believe me, you just have to get to the essence that is being conveyed in that code.
Okay, great. Okay, now we have Saujanya. Go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question to Vaibhav.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Good
Hi,
evening.
good evening.
Sir, with the part of quotation section, just now you have explained, sir, like for this quotations part, or should we have to start with the anecdotes directly, sir? Like, for example, if any quotation, if it described Nehru or Mahatma Gandhi, should we can directly go with the anecdotes and some kind of examples, or should we have to explain the quotation in explicit way, sir?
Yes. That was ma'am was also telling that you just don't have to just skip through it. You have to explain the code in its entirety. And the best approach is to find that value which is being mentioned in that code. It can be any value like empathy, emotion, intelligence, or honesty, or any ethical value which is being there, whether it is explicit or implicit. You just have to find that value and then just explain it, and then you have to link it to the subject part of this entire quotation, and then you have to move to the relevant examples. It's not like that you just give 2 lines and then just move to the examples, and examples become very long. It doesn't work like that. In quotation based, your first paragraph or first meaning based paragraph has to be long, and then you have to be give a just second example that is being relevant to it.
So yeah, one more question, sir. Like when it comes to case studies, like we have certain terms like empathy, compassion, integrity. Should
Yes.
we have to, how we can connect those terms with the personalities, like Mahatma Gandhi or Mother
Ha.
Teresa? How we can actually connect the terms with personalities?
See, in case studies, you never have to explain the meaning of the code, the meaning of the values which you are being writing. For example, you just have to use the values, words of values such as empathy, honesty, tolerance, integrity. You just have to use them. You never have to explain them, because it does not require them, and you won't have the space even as well as the time with it. So you can use, for example, Gandhiji's name, or you can use directly Raul's. For example, Rao's name will itself indicate social justice, terms like social justice. Similarly, there is Aristotle. You just have to add golden mean and then just move ahead. You don't have to explain too much. You just have to give one passing remark and link it to the case study which is being asked. You never go to explain any values, and always, for example, use some best possible values which are being associated to particular man. For example, if you have to use Gandhiji, you can use Sarvodaya, you can use Gandhiji's talisman, Gandhiji's seven sense, because every evaluator knows all these terms, so you don't have to worry about it. And so the best possible approach is to use the best standard case studies, best standard values, as well as best standard personalities. For example, Gandhiji is suited across space and time. It can never change. So you just have to go through some standard sets, but all these things come from the practice when you apply it in the previous year's question papers or your mock exams itself.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. I think Vaibhav will take one final question. After that, whatever questions you will have, I'll take care of those questions, because your Vaibhav has certain commitment that he has to be there. So, Saurav, go ahead, unmute yourself, and Vaibhav will answer your question.
Like which source we need to use? Like Sar told DK Balaji. Like which source we need to refer to complete the syllabus?
Right, I think Vaibhav has answered that, but I think Vaibhav, you can give your final take on that, because people have that doubts a lot.
Yes, ma'am. See, even I had joined a coaching institute and I had already made notes out of it. For example, if you are studying from any book, for example, if you have joined a coaching, they will provide you a notes about that GS course syllabus. If you are doing it from online course, they will also provide you the concept regarding it, as well as the written material for the GS paper. But after my 2020 attempt, I just try to just add a more layer to it, and just increase it more by value addition. And thus I use that DK Balaji's ethics book. And also, believe me, if you're looking for some fancy works, you will get very disappointed in his book, because he has explained it in a very lucid manner. It's not fancy, it's very basic thing. And I'm just telling that DK Balaji's book because I had referred to it, and it also had some solutions to the case studies part in the end paper. And it acted as a eureka moment for me, because at that time I realized that the case studies have to be so directly to the point. Rather than just making it long, it doesn't help at all. You just have to be very specific, very to the point. And so, as you are just asking for the books, see, since I had joined a coaching, so I had referred to their materials completely. I see, and the most of the times people don't believe where they are studying. They are always looking for fancy notes. For example, if I've joined Civilsdaily, or example says any coaching institute, or I'm learning from any book, one book is sufficient. You just have to do it very thoroughly, and then just supplement it with just another book for just value addition, and that too if you are running short of the content. And so in my case, I just used DK Balaji sir's book to just fill all my gaps which were there regarding the syllabus part, as well as to get some insights how to attempt the questions. I had I had seen the case study solutions which he had given in the end part of the book.
Okay, right, Vaibhav. Thank you so much, Vaibhav, for joining and taking out time from your busy schedule. But I think your advice is going to be very, very important for these students. And we wish you all the best for your future journey. Like, you've been very diligent throughout this year. I think for the next few part of your journey also, you'll be flying out with good colors. So thank you so much again. And we wish to see you again in few webinars. But again, for now, thank you. Good night.